the way we do Saxon math with the Robinson curriculum, I don't know if you ever talked to Dr. Art Robinson, but he recommended, if as long as they get 95% or above, they can move on to the next lesson, or else they need to redo the lesson and slow down, maybe just do half the lesson the next day. You told me you think 80% is a little bit more way. As long as they get 80% right on the lesson, they can keep moving forward. Would
So
you
let me
say
clarify.
also just, yes, please clarify.
Okay. So in school settings, when you have a wide range of students, the real risk in using Saxon is that as each lesson gets a little bit harder, it never gets easier. Each lesson gets a little bit harder. That as students start falling behind, then it's really hard for them to catch up. They'll just fall farther and farther and farther behind. So it's real important that students maintain at least an 80% correct, not average, but test scores, every single test. With homework, and your kids going home and they're coming back and you don't know how much help they've had, but tests take place in the classroom, the teacher grades the tests. If they start scoring at any point below 80%, and that's just red flags, you've got to be sure that that kid gets intervention, because pretty soon they're going to fall way behind. It'll just keep getting harder. So that's why I use the 80% figure.
Okay, for
Now,
tests.
the Robinsons, who can question the success,
Yes.
of their kids,
Yes.
and they've done really well, and they have good, solid recommendations. And so what I would say with respect to their 95% level, let's say, is that the students can make small arithmetic errors or careless errors and be able to correct them. They say, oh, no wonder, yeah, I can get that right. But if it's a conceptual error, if it's something that they don't understand, then you better not let those accumulate. So even on this 80% criteria, which on a 20-question test, you can miss 4, but not more than 4. And those 4 better not be conceptual mistakes. I mean, they better be able to get those right by correcting it on the first try without being confused about it. They should just recognize that these are like just arithmetic errors or something like that. So it's the difference between a careless mistake and something I just don't understand. And you can't let the I just don't understand, you can't let those kinds of errors accumulate.
Yes.
They have to figure out what's going on. So in some of the books, there's actually supplemental practice in these older editions in the back of the book. And so we didn't do it for every lesson, but we did it for ones where we anticipated that they might need more practice. So if you're using some of the older editions, maybe in the back of the book, you'll find some additional practice on that. Or you just go back to the lesson and do that practice set on that particular topic, do that. Or go find that kind of a question and do it in this lesson and the next lesson and the next lesson and the next lesson. Just focus in on that for a little bit. So it's the difference between mass practice and distributed practice. So with mass practice, you're doing a lot of exercises, handful of them, maybe a few more, to just practice that one skill. And then distributed practice is it comes every now and then as you're going through the review sets. And you need both kinds for good long-term memory.
Yes. And I wanted to ask you, one of the big favorite things with parents with Saxon math is I think it's, you tell me, is it only a second edition where in the problems, it'll have a little parenthesis that tells you what lesson that was covered in. So this problem 14, it'll tell you lesson 35, this next one, lesson 63. So they can go back. Is that just the second edition, or are there other editions that have that?
I don't think it was in the first edition, but it's in every Once it appeared, it's in every edition ever since.
Okay. Yeah. So
The
that's
lesson
just it.
reference numbers and the lesson reference numbers are there
That
in
is so
every edition.
helpful.
And in our grammar program, we do the same thing. We put lists and lesson reference numbers uh, for every exercise.
I think
So
you
the
gave us
students
some
can
great
go back.
tips.
Mhm.
Yes. Because so, this is what I've heard. There's three common errors: careless, just maybe writing it wrong,
Right.
not lighting things up; computational, just arithmetic error; and then, like you said, conceptual. So the first two are pretty easy to fix, but when it comes to conceptual, they're not getting it. You gave us, practice those math handouts, the supplemental things, because you say at this point they really do need intervention. Even in a self-taught curriculum, you have
Yes.
plenty of tools that they can use. But